Hi Robyn, here's the feedback for the reading part of the mock exam that you did recently. So looking at question 1, you've scored the full 4 marks for this question, so that's a good start. So moving on to question 2, which is the question where you're asked to analyse the language that the writer uses to describe the effects of the storm. You started off well saying that he uses a list one after the other to describe the weather, and that you said he does it so that it builds up suspension. However, you've not given the examples of the list of descriptive parts of the weather, which is what you need to do to get the marks. You've done the same here where he uses mostly short sentences, and you've given a bit of a reason why, but again, no quotes for the short sentences. In your third paragraph, you have said he uses lots of adjectives, and you've stated the adjective roaring and said that you will get a completely different version. You need to explain the effect of using that particular word, the fact that it makes it sound like it's wild animals or that it's really angry and loud, rather than just saying you'd get a completely different version. And then your last paragraph ends with a short, simple sentence. He was still tangled in the images of his bad dream. Again, you've just said this is used because it makes the reader want to read on, because it's interesting and intriguing. But you need to say what you might be thinking, what the effect is, not just that it's interesting and intriguing. You could have said something like the use of the verb tangled shows that he can't get rid of the thoughts of his bad dream and the worries that he's got about his mum, which would have given you a little bit extra and a couple more marks perhaps. As it is, if we look at the mark scheme for this question, offers simple comment on the effect of language. Well, because you've not gone into more detail, it is only simple comment. Select simple references or textual details. You've only given 2 quotes, although you've done 4 paragraphs, so you do need to try and include a quote for each paragraph. And make simple use of subject terminology, not always appropriately. Well, the terminology that they have used, I'm assuming, is appropriately. In the last 2 paragraphs, it is appropriate. In the top 2 paragraphs, or the first 2 paragraphs, I can't really say if they're appropriate or not, because you haven't put the quotes in to back up the terminology that you've used. And so unfortunately, that's got to limit it to 2 out of the possible 8 marks. Had you put quotes in, then you could have got up to 4 marks, and had you given some more in-depth analysis of the effects of the choice of language, then you would have been up into band 3 at least. Moving on to question 3, which is a question about how the writer has structured the text to interest you as a reader. And you start off very well where you're talking about the first 2 paragraphs. The first one being about the dream, and good question, rhetorical question, says you wonder why it's his mum the dark bird has taken, and why Alex is having such a negative and dark dream. And then you say the second paragraph continues with more information about the dream, and to tell us that Alex was scared of the dream. And then you've commented on the fact that in the third paragraph we're introduced to his mum, and this is the first time we realise that she is ill. Now, in the first 3 paragraphs, you've not given any quotes, which again is going to limit your grade. You must give quotes in every question to gain higher marks. However, for the next paragraph, you have said from the 16th line to the 29th line, and that's fine to do because it is just a lot of dialogue. So we'll count that as being a quote. And you've stated that it introduces the family and the father and the 2 sisters, and we do learn more about their relationship. And then you've said that it goes on, it seems to get more depressing, indicating that it's going to be an unpleasant ending. Again, that's a good point, but no quote to back it up. And then you say lastly, which is a good linking word and subject terminology. The last paragraph talks about Alex being upset and then missing his mother earlier on in the source. Oh no, You said that it talks about Alex being upset and missing his mother, whereas earlier on in the source it talked about Alex just being angry. But this now shows that he's actually upset, and again we're missing the quote. So looking at the mark scheme, offer simple comment on the effect of structure. Yes, I agree, you've done that one. Select simple references or examples. You've given us one in there. And make simple use of subject terminology. Your terminology is appropriate. So we've covered all of those three there. So let's have a look at level 2. Attempts to comment on the effect of structural features. Yes, I would say you have done. Select some appropriate examples. Now this is the one that I don't think we can get any higher because you've only given us that one quote. And make some use of subject terminology mainly appropriately. Well, you have talked about structure. Lastly, in the beginning, source as it moves on, and so on. So I think we can have the marks for this point. But because we've only got that one quote, not even a quote, we've got the line suggested, it's going to have to be 3 out of the possible 8 for this question, which is a shame because you have made some nice comments in there, and I think if you'd have included some quotes to back up those points, we could definitely have got it into level 3. So you must make sure to remember putting your quotes in. That is a vital point for every question. And now moving on to question 4, where you've been asked to what extent do you agree with the statement that the story shows Alex is struggling to cope. And you started off by stating that you fully agree that Alex is struggling to cope with his mother's illness. And you said that everything to do with Alex, he seems constantly upset, uninterested and angry. So you've said that in response to his sister's questions and statements about the mother, Alex shouts at them, saying that they're just kids and they don't know what they're talking about. You have included quotes in this one, and more quotes than before, which is an improvement, but just make sure that you put your speech marks in. Need speech marks here. And you said this shows that Alex is in denial and gets heated every time someone mentions his mother, showing he could be showing signs of depression. This next bit where you're talking about the foods that they have relates to all of them. It's not relating to Alex in particular. If you'd have mentioned the effect on Alex himself, then it would have been more relevant. However, your next little bit where you say it also mentions that nobody's cooked in months, it seems like since mother got ill everything just stopped and it's affecting everyone but Alex the most. So that is a little bit of evaluative comments. And then moving on to the last paragraph, where he says there's shown large amounts of weakness. It shows over the months how Alex realised how much of an input his mother was and how everything was so happy when she was around. So it describes how Alex's mother looked. She was skinny and frail, and it also mentions she walks around in a confused air. So we've got a little bit of quote there, which could suggest that she's got an illness such as dementia, etc., etc. So we've got evaluative comment here of the effects of the words used, the confused air. The fact that you've said it describes how she looked and it mentions, this is showing some understanding of the writer's methods. We've got some quotes in there, and you have made some response to the focus of the statement in the beginning. You could have done with concluding with that just to finish it off. You have also given some evaluative comments on the effects on the reader when you said this shows Alex is in denial and gets heated every time somebody mentions his mother, and the fact that he could be showing signs of depression. So if we look at the mark scheme, I think at level 2 you have made some evaluative comments and given the effect on the reader. You've shown some understanding of the writer's methods, but to get higher marks you really need to be showing more So you could have said that the writer used dialogue to show how angry Alex is, and the writer compares how his mum used to be, and gives the examples of the brightness and the colour paintings and so on, compared to how she is now, where she's just a silent ghost. That would be showing understanding of the writer's methods. You have selected some appropriate textual references, but again, I think we need to make sure that you put in a quote in for every point that you make, and you have made some response to the focus of the statement, although that could have done with being in the conclusion as well. So I think for this question it's going to be the 8 out of the possible 20 marks.